Welcome to another episode of Sneaks Rhymes and Life. I am your host, Lionel McDonald. So, welcome back to the pod. It's been a little bit since we recorded the last one, but I will tell you that we haven't really done much since I think it was the Big Pun one, and then obviously Outkast getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I think were the last couple episodes that were recorded, but we have another hip hop one to kind of go through. But let's first of all get a shout out to my Knicks. We are in the Eastern Conference Final.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. The Knicks have finally broken through. We're going to beat the Pacers in 7 and be in the final. So world, hopefully you are ready for the world's best NBA fans to be all over social media, because that's what's going to happen. But saying all that, I have two guests with me, been on before. So Anthony Martinez and our good friend David, the wax curator, both back on the pod. So gentlemen, welcome back to the pod as we get into a very interesting topic today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Pleasure.
So
Thank
for
you for having
those
me
that
back.
haven't listened, and again, this is available on Spotify, this is available on Apple Music, and obviously will be available on YouTube. And we'll start with you. Maybe you can give a quick introduction to everyone else on who you are, and a little bit about your journey with hip hop before we get it cranked up today.
All right. Well, I'm at from northern LA area. Grew up big hip hop fan, exclusively West Coast, with all the music around, and ever since growing up in the early '80s and '90s, where it really popped off for us. It's just been our lifestyle, and it continues to live out here, and it's become who I am, and now who my family is. Um, we started off being a fan of hip hop, and you find yourself exploring music yourself and experimenting, and lo and behold, I have an artist myself now. My son. I started off rapping in the backseat of my car and doing YouTube videos, doing covers, and he took another lane. It's more of a, like a pop lane, but but for me as a hip hop fan, it's been my dream come true. And if you ever get a chance to check him out on Spotify or any major platform, his name is Presence. You'll hear a lot of the hip hop background in there. But that's who I am, and we're from Camarillo, California, and just excited to share our hip hop knowledge and learn from you guys and get your perspective on some of these artists and what's going on in the state of hip hop today.
All right, thanks so much, and David. We'll turn it over to you.
Hey, David Nagayo, wax curator. Again, I'm a hip hop collector. Been doing, as with my last couple podcasts, we were talking about my records and everything. I've been collecting hip hop since like the 90s. Just fell in love with hip hop when I was in high school. I remember in the early 90s, it just, my cousin, he would just bring music down from the Bay Area because I grew up kind of a little bit north from Anthony in Oceano, San Luis Obispo area. So I grew up kind of like in that 805 area, originally from San Francisco, but right now I'm in San Diego. Just again, hip hop collector, love hip hop from anything from the East Coast to the West Coast. It's just just love hip
Yeah.
hop.
All right. So we have two official hip hop heads for multiple decades, and obviously I'm Lionel McDonald, your host of Sneaks Rhymes and Life. My hip hop journey started way back with Run DMC and LL Cool J in the mid '80s. So that's dating myself. Today is the last day that I will be 50 years old as we're recording this. Tomorrow I will be in Area 51 as I will be 51 years old. But thank you saying all that. So let's jump into today's topic. So there's been a lot of things floating around in the world of hip hop, and specifically, there was a comparison done, and started to look at artists and catalogs So the comparison, which was an artist's, and using Michael Jackson as the reference of an artist, which one of their catalog was their Thriller album and which one was their Off the Wall album? So a very interesting way to look at an artist. Sometimes we just talk about the best album, or we talk about the most breakthrough album, or the one that is the most impactful, or that stood the test of time. We're going to look at this in a different way. So the Off the Wall album and then the Thriller album. So it'd be interesting how each of the guys have interpreted. We picked 3 artists, and then we're going to go through a couple artists as a group. But Ant, we'll start with you. So we gave you 3. Maybe you could share which ones we gave you, and then give us the breakdown.
I chose Kendrick. I got Kendrick. I got Dre, and I got Pac. Those 3 are honestly my 3 favorite artists of all time. So I couldn't be happier to explore this topic with them. And to start off, I figured out that I had to do a little bit of research on MJ. Everybody knows MJ's music, how great it was, and it still resonates today. But I wasn't alive at the time when it dropped. I was still sitting in a chromosome or something somewhere. 79 when Off the Wall dropped. It transformed music. It was leaving, music at the time was leaving like the disco era and going into a funk phase, and everybody knew who Mike was, and was looking forward to his first album. And Off the Wall changed the game. It was his debut album at 21, and then you go with Thriller, which is maybe the best album of all time across any genre of any music. I can't even just say American music, but that was like a stage set. That was like I went to go see Thriller on Broadway, and it was like made to be on a stage with actors and like a big production, and so it was very cool to check it out if you guys get a chance to check that out. But exploring these artists and their catalog. For Kendrick, I would say Good Kid, Mad City would definitely be his Off the Wall. That was his introduction into. I know he had a catalog before, but he was getting all this hype, and it was like, as a hip hop fan, old school hip hop fan, it was like, okay, all right, Kendrick, all right, this kid coming out of Compton, and all the young hip hop guys were trying to that was their guy. Like, oh no, we know hip hop more than you do, and like, what are you guys talking about? You guys don't even know it. What you talking about? And, well, we got this guy Kendrick coming up. He's from Compton. I was like, Compton, man, that's Dre, that's Easy-E, there's DJ Quick, there's hundreds
MC8
for him, MC8. But once he dropped that Good Kid, Mad City, I was like, Poetic Justice dropped, and it was like, okay, all right. It reminded me gave me that feel of the Poetic Justice movie with Tupac, and all of a sudden my wife started liking it, and so it was like, okay, it's kind of bringing us together. Usually it was like, okay, I had to go. When I was driving solo is when I got to hear the hip hop music on my own and blast it out. But this time now it was like, okay, she kind of likes this too. All right, it's introducing it so we can play a little bit more. But Good Kid, Mad City was definitely a movie for me. It gives me a feel of Menace to Society. If you guys haven't seen that,
all-time classic.
It really feels the movie, and it's actually put down into words. And when you're listening to that album, it feels like you're living that movie over again, which was a classic growing up. That would definitely be the Off the Wall in his catalog for me. And then if you go with the Thriller in his catalog, I'm gonna have to say To Pimp a Butterfly. As much as I wanted to say Damn, because that was my favorite album, To Pimp a Butterfly was perfect, just like Thriller was. It brought the community together, and it still resonates today in what we're in society, and bringing the culture together, and fighting for our rights, and standing up as people, and numbers is power, and it kind of reminded me of where Tupac left off. Tupac had us following him like he was Dr. King. And I'm already kind of jumping ahead here, but that's the kind of impact that this album had, to Pimp a Butterfly, and it's highly acclaimed everywhere. Everybody's giving it 100. One of the best albums of all time. All of his work is meticulously pinned down to the T, every I dotted, every T crossed, and that's what Thriller is to me. Thriller is a perfect album where beginning to end, every word was put there for a reason, and it brought a type of energy in itself, the game, and hip hop in general, to set a new standard. And so that's why I chose those two albums for my comparison to MJ's catalog.
I could easily see anyone seeing it the other way around. But I would kind of agree with the way you've stated and made your case. Like, I just think the albums align better, that, and I think when you really see, with Good Kid, Mad City, and having MC8, and having so many other artists now wanting to be a part of it after Section 80, it's the natural choice that Good Kid, Mad City is your off the wall, and then the symphony, or the masterpiece, if you're Picasso, is To Pimp a Butterfly. So I totally agree with you.
Agreed.
Awesome.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Totally agree.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. Okay, let's hear the second one.
Good stuff.
All right, we'll keep it going.
Yeah.
All right, we'll keep it going.
Okay, so I'm gonna go with Dre next.
I'm gonna go with Dre next.
And with Dre,
There's not very many albums to choose from, but they definitely set the standard. The Chronic would be my Off the Wall. It was Dre's first solo album. It changed the sound. It to me, it took hip hop to another level on a mainstream stage across the country, and it started what created this massive takeover of music. Dre himself, again, a perfectionist. Everything from the beginning to the end is meticulously thought over, and I don't even want to be in that studio with them. I don't know how many times they rehearsed that, and that is what Michael Jackson is to me. A perfectionist, never satisfied, always expecting more out of everybody, and knowing that there's another level, and making people believe that you could do more. And that's what the Chronic did for me. It was again his first album, his first solo album, so Off the Wall. And then I would go with Thriller would be 2001. That was more of like the stage set again, where the theater play, and we went with the Up in Smoke tour, which was created out of it. And at that time, that was the biggest hip hop tour we've ever seen. It was unbelievable. And I remember when that album dropped, it's just like Thriller. You just play it at a house party, beginning to end, and it would go. You didn't even need a DJ anymore.
it would go.
Yeah,
it would go.
Too good.
And then when it ended, you just laid it over.
So in the Chronic.
You know,
Put in the Chronic.
So 2001 would definitely be the Thriller for me. They even brought in Eminem, and Eminem showcased his and went West Coast style on that one. And man, that was and just seeing the tour pop off, and then how it went to the big screen, and they made DVDs off of it, and that was a time itself, and that will live with me forever, just like Thriller will.
Okay.
What do you guys think about that?
What do you guys think about that?
I definitely would agree. That those are obviously the two albums of choice. I just don't know, like in the world of where we consider what the masterpiece is, we don't talk about 2001 like we talk about the Chronic. Like, so for me, it's got to be in reverse. Although they came out different, and that's where this conversation gets very interesting, because I think as we go along, despite what you may believe is the Off the Wall album versus the Thriller album, they don't necessarily going to go in chronological order like it just happened with Kendrick. I think you're going to think other albums, maybe based on sound, maybe based on, rhyme scheme or topic, it's in another order. And for me, the Chronic has to be Thriller. There's no other way. Like, I can't start a conversation and say, okay, what's the best album? Because we're going to talk about, in every artist's catalog, which is the best album that they've ever it's the Chronic. So it can't be Off the Wall. Now, I know that there's some people out there that are not in the majority that would say that, hey, because of the revolutionary sound that an artist has created, that Off the Wall is actually a better album than Thriller. And it was like, that's a hot take. And I'm not saying that. I'm taking Thriller 100 days out of 100. But for me, the Chronic has got to be Thriller. And on the other side, then 2001 has got to be Off the Wall. Like, those are the albums obviously in the conversation just based on what we have. But I have to take the Chronic as Thriller, in my opinion.
That's definitely the beauty about this.
That's definitely the beauty about this.
That's why we're doing this.
Yeah. I would say. I was doing the same thing. All my picks are like chronological order when they came out, because obviously there's like different the sounds from the two albums. But the Chronic, if we're gonna base it like that, where Thriller was like my favorite, I would say Chronic would be mine too, because at the time, it was 92, and then you had the riots, you had the Rodney King, you had all these things that are happening in LA that's cultivating this sound that the Chronic had, and sonically his sampling and just everything was just on point. It was like Ant said, it's like a masterpiece. I mean, it's meticulously chosen everything, even all the features on. I remember when Bushwick Bill was on it. You know what I mean? Like, she's from the Ghetto Boys, but he was able to show up on this album. So, I mean, one of my favorite songs is "Stranded on Death Row," because it just showed like how lyrical everyone was on that album as well. But just I agree. Like, the Chronic is the one for me that is my comparison to Thriller.
If you definitely say like which was the better album over time, it would be the Chronic. For me, the way I chose Off the Wall was a little bit more raw, so that's why I went with the Chronic as compared to Off the Wall, where 2001 was a little bit more polished.
And I think we'll see that as we go along, that when you go to Thriller, like, it's the polished album. And I think you definitely can take that in that perspective, that if it's by far the more polished one, then that should be your Thriller. So this is why this is fun. And this is why this topic has so much substance and perspective. Like, we could say everyone is wrong because of the way that you can interpret it. Right. So this is the one that I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear Kendrick, and I says like, yeah, he's gonna get it right. Like, at least he's gonna align with me. This one, I have no clue how you're gonna line up with Tupac. Go! I can't wait.
Right. I know when we were discussing it, it was like everybody had a different opinion, you know, and so I had to go with. A lot of times I have to try not to read or research too much. I got to go with what I felt during that time, and for me, Off the Wall was Be Against the World. It was my introduction really to Pac. I mean, we did hear like Keep Your Head Up and I Get Around, but it was more good songs than it was the artist. To me back then, being that young, um, Me Against the World when Dear Mama came out, that was like wow. I didn't know hip hop could be this like
Yeah.
emotional. It could we could talk about our
Positive.
mom, you know, and my mom actually that was the first CD she bought me, you know, and I think he may have got her on that one
He
because
sure did. He sure
she
did.
bought me that one and she was trying to keep me out of gangs and stuff, you know, gangs were going rap and hip hop and this and that, not trying to buy me Raider gear. And she buys me this Dear Mama album single, and it turned me into the biggest Tupac fan of all time. You know, where we were wearing, I'm wearing my Death Row shirt right now, but I was trying to get a Death Row chain myself when Pac was out. But Me Against the World, that album was so raw, and it just gave me so many memories of my childhood. The song Old School, where he talks about like the ice cream man and being in Brooklyn and the Bronx and growing up in Harlem and stuff like that. That was just I I never been to New York at that time, but I felt like I
Yeah.
had by listening to that album. And so when I got the opportunity to finally go, I had to walk through Harlem myself and walk to Rucker Park and go to Lenox Ave, um, just because of my experiences through hip hop albums. And Me Against the World is what did for me what Off the Wall I felt like did for many music fans in the world. It brought people together, and it still lives today through Dear Mom. I don't know anybody who doesn't
Yeah.
know the lyric, you know, and every Mother's Day, that's my
Yeah.
post right there. It's gonna be a Dear Mama lyric in there, you know what I'm saying? And then my favorite album of all time will be Thriller,
Yeah.
All Eyes on Me. That one just it took what Dre did to another level. Um, it was a whole nother movement again, and I just feel like the way his delivery felt like we were listening to a Dr. King speech, and he was making us believers in what he was saying, and whether it was good or bad or gangster, man, we were
Yeah.
ready to ride for him. So um, All Eyes on Me was the polished product. All hands on deck, Ray, all of Death Row. That's when everybody came out together and wanted to be a part of this. It was just like a mega album, the first double album that we've seen. Um, I don't. There was no skip tracks on that. To me, that's the Thriller, um, and that album will continue to live forever in my eyes.
It honestly, in my opinion, and there's been hits and misses with these double albums. Like obviously, Nas did one, Biggie did one, Outkast did one.
Wu-Tang.
We have a Tupac one, and there's other artists that obviously have done them. I think this is the most polished. Like there obviously is such a challenge. Like, and I'm counting on this album. There's 27 songs. That is a lot of material to put into one album and not say that there's
And didn't he
any
record
cuts.
like hundreds of songs?
Yeah, he did, and he cut it to 27, which is
there's
is
so
a
many.
masterwork on its own.
That's crazy.
But I think this is the best. It's not my favorite. It's not the one I would go to. But if you listen to it beginning to end, both CDs, if you're listening to CDs, you know, I don't know how many. Like David, I'm sure you got it on vinyl. Like, how many records is it? 4, 5, 6?
I think it's 4.
Okay. I think it's the best one. So I totally agree with you that this is it.
And it even has a Red Man and Method Man on it.
Yep. And the infamous Inspector Deck verse got cut.
I know.
Because he said Deck went too crazy on his verse.
At least he has the ad libs at the end fading out.
Yeah,
of the song.
exactly. So
he's there.
He's there in one bar. Oh boy. All right. So David, you're up next. Love to hear how you broke down your 3. I think we're all aligned on Tupac that we got this one. We got this one locked in. I did think it's like I was very interested to see what is he actually going to do with Tupac? Like, is he actually going to include another album? Like, would he go with either of the first 2? And Strictly 4 is actually probably the album that I play the most, and I just like this. It's I don't think it's the best album, but it has the songs that gravitate to me the most. When I look at the album, I just thoroughly enjoy playing it in comparison to some of the other ones. So, but I definitely think that these are the 2 projects. You picked the right ones. David, I don't know what you think.
Man, and I know like Machiavelli was thrown out there.
Definitely Machiavelli could be in the conversation. You could make a case for that one too.
Tupacalypse Now.
Yeah. But I think when push comes to shove, you have to choose those ones.
Those are the ones. Yeah, those are the ones.
Yeah. I Get Around still rings in my head.
All right, so I did. So I have Public Enemy. I can start with Public Enemy. I mean, it takes a million to hold us. It takes a nation of millions to hold us back. Would probably be my Off the Wall. Second album has a lot of some of my favorite songs. Rebel Without a Pause, Bring the Noise, Don't Believe the Hype. You know, they have one of the I think it's one of my favorite because Chuck D is emerging more of a voice. It's, you know, Fear the Black Planet's the next one, but this one here, I just think that they're solidifying themselves as that voice of hip hop, a revolution. It's just basically, you know, taking no prisoners. I mean, even the videos that they came out with. I mean, I just think that this album here is just one of those albums that you can listen to the whole Bomb Squad production is super dope. I would say this would be the Off the Wall, and then my thriller would be Fear the Black Planet. I mean, that one. I mean, that's probably the first album that I really got into them. Because like 911's a joke, and of course, Fight the Power is like the anthem that still resonates today, especially with all the political shit that's going on. Yeah, I would say that that would be my thriller. The second album, or I'm sorry, the third album, Fear the Black Planet. What do you guys think of those 2 albums? I know like 91 Apocalypse Now is one that a lot of people like too as well. Shut It Down and Can't Trust It. So I was kind of teetering by putting that, but I wanted to go chronological. That's how I did mine. So I was thinking like, okay, which is going to be my Off the Wall, and then to my thriller. So those 2 in the middle kind of aligned more.
Yeah, I would tell you.
What is that?
In my opinion, that I think you got it right. As much as we want to talk about, as much as we want to talk of takes a nation of millions to hold us back. For me, the album that really resonates with me in my youth is Fear of a Black Planet. Like, and I would tell you that I even went through like this is the album that totally changed my perspective that hip hop was the only genre that I really wanted to listen to. I was listening to a lot of different things, including hip hop. I was still listening. But this album is the one that grabbed me, and it's like, this is the genre for you. And I remember listening, and I had it on a red, probably it's still over there on my tape case. It's a red Maxell tape, 90 minutes.
Yes.
There was some gaps at the end because it wasn't a full 90 minutes. But when I listened to the end of the song that got me is because I didn't see how they would collaborate, but it happened, was Burn Hollywood Burn. I absolutely
Ice Cube and Big Daddy
love
Kane.
that song. For so many reasons, but like this album gripped me so hard, like it had me in chokehold, like, and I played it so much in my silver Walkman that's somewhere around in this house still. It doesn't work, but I keep it for nostalgia's sake because I played so many albums on this thing. I think you nailed it. Like, these are the albums that I would have chosen.
Sony, Iowa. What was your Walkman? Was it an Iowa?
No, it was a Sony. It was a Sony, not a yellow Sony like everyone had it in those days. I waited a little longer. I think I had a Panasonic one first, and that copped out, and then I went to a Sony, and that was it until I had a CD player.
I had like the 3-band Iowa.
I remember that one. I think my brother had that one.
Equalizer on the bass boost and everything. It was like it wasn't as, it was a little bit cheaper than the Sony, so I was like, I could afford that one.
I feel like the Iowas were made for hip hop, though.
Oh, it was dope. I loved it.
But I would have to agree with you on those. When you got those artists, I was excited to see what you guys would pick because I'm not too up on Public Enemy, but I know how much they've influenced my favorite artists like Cube and just setting the groundwork for where we're at today, and Kendrick and Pop. But I was excited to see what you guys were going to say because now I'm interested in hearing these tracks that you're talking about. So I'm super excited to see what you got next.
All right, so what do I got next? De La.
This may be the most challenging one to do, period.
Of course. So again, I was doing chronological. So my Off the Wall was the first album, 3 Feet High and Rising. So I wanted to start off with the first album because it's fun. It's a fun album. It's I was just the funny thing right before I got onto the podcast, I was watching Kenny Parker. He has a live show he does on YouTube, and he had Prince Paul on there, and he was talking about De La Soul, so it was actually pretty cool.
That's dope.
And he was just discussing how basically the samples, like all the issues with the samples and how they got in trouble. So that's why there was like a big delay with like streaming and being able to be having it on streaming platforms and finally releasing it on vinyl, and all the issues with Tommy Boy and everything. So it's just kind of crazy how like this first album had it's like a collage of all these different ideas and all these samples. I mean, I remember what was it? Say No Go.
Mm-hmm.
They sampled Hall & Oates. And it's just crazy.
Hall & Oates wanted their money.
I love that Hall & Oates song.
Yep.
Right, and then they wanted their money, and it's like, oh shit! It's like, it's just a fun album. Pasta News, Trugoy. I know like the main like song. What is it? Me, Myself, and I. Like how that was a last minute. Yeah. How was a last minute addition because the label wanted a single, but it was like one of those things where I was like, oh yeah. I mean, you could kind of tell it was like they were trying to put it together to make a radio song versus like plug tune in and all these other songs that are kind of like out. You know, it's not the norm. So that's the cool thing about it. They were just like having fun, and just the sound the samples, it's everything on this song. I mean, this album. So then that brings me to the next album, which is the Thriller album. I would compare it to because it's like it's De La Soul's dead because now they're shedding this persona, this whole like they're like this nerdy rap, this like hippie rap. I think they called it back and try to coin it
Yeah.
back in the day, but it's now they're shedding this to be a little bit more serious. Prince Paul was still helping out with production on that one too, and he even said too that even on all the albums, like it was a collective. Like De La Soul had their ideas in producing, and so did Prince Paul. So it wasn't just Prince Paul like did the whole thing that I thought he did. You know what I mean? Like you would think it's just all Prince Paul, but De La Soul had a huge hand with the production for both albums. But De La Soul is dead. I mean, that one, you can tell the sound has changed. I mean, it's not all the funny skits and everything, but Ring 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 was a good song.
Saturday.
Keeping
the
the
roller
Faith.
Skate song. Yeah,
Saturday.
That's my joint.
Roller Skate. Yep. Past the plugs. Past the plugs is my joint. There was like so. It's like that's another one where you could just listen to from the beginning to the end, and it's just. Did they get 5 mics in the Source?
No, I don't think so. I think that one got.
Or was it?
I think it got 4.5.
Okay, 4.5. Okay. But yeah, I would say between because then I was also because again I was doing the first album to the second album, but I didn't want to skip De La Soul's Dead, but right up there would have been Stakes Is High because that had that Dilla influence in some of the tracks. So I did like Stakes Is High, but I ended up going with De La Soul's Dead as my Thriller representation.
Okay. Ant, what do you think?
Like I said again, as much as I know, like the classic singles, I'm excited to explore the full albums now. Just off this conversation, and then we might have to do a part 2, and I have to either support the argument or have a rebuttal.
Yeah. All right. So, very, very interesting choices. And I love De La. I did a podcast about 2 months ago, 4 album runs, and De La is on the podium for having one of the best 4 albums, and it's these 4 albums. Like it's 3 Feet High and Rising.
Yep.
It's De La Soul Is Dead. It's Balloon State of Mind and Stakes Is High. Like it is hard to argue that outside maybe Tribe Called Quest and Outkast, any artist has produced 4 albums in a row as good as this. So for me, I definitely would agree. De La Soul, 3 Feet High and Rising has to be the off the wall album. This is the groundbreaking album that we now have a different sound than we ever experienced. It like the way that the MCs integrate, and yeah, you can feel that. Me, Myself, and I is like an ad, and it's funny if you listen to many stories about artists. These artists really believe that sometimes the single is the song that comes at the very end. Like I think OC is an example.
Yeah.
Time's Up was like one of the last songs ever recorded because they wanted a song that they could put in front of the album. It took one song to kind of get him on a roll, but eventually he rolled through the whole album in a very short period of time after struggling to make one song. But then Time's Up, which is the masterpiece he had, it came near the very end. But for me, you kind of mentioned the album. Stakes Is High for me is the album that has to be the thrill. I think between the guest appearances, the sound, how it sounds sonically with Dilla, I think when you talk about them shedding this early persona, I think you feel like when you start looking at Michael Jackson and how he shed this boy band, I'm going to be a solo artist and kind of was putting his toe in the water. Like you could see it was almost like this thriller, batter attitude, almost with what you see with Thriller and Bad, what you've seen now with Stakes of High. It's like a masterpiece. If you think about how he created this album, how he ultimately the group put things together, and Michael Jackson put, like, literally it fits perfectly together. And this is why for me it's gotta be, this is the Thriller album. It's the song that, of all friends that I know that love De La Soul, yeah, there's certain songs, but the album that people gravitate, they want it, and it's more of the most boom bap album that they have in their entire collection. Now there's some that come after this, but this is the one. This is smack in the middle. 1996. This is the era right before DMX. We are in Mobb Deep, Wu-Tang. Like, when you feel the New York sound, it's almost like you feel that they changed their sound to fit the times. What they had done in the early 90s, it made sense for the early 90s. What they did with Stakes is High is like their boom bap opus, and I love the album, and it's my favorite.
I mean, it came after that year 95. I mean, where all that boom bap and classic albums just came out. But that album, man, the Stakes is High. I remember watching the Stakes is High video with what was it, Maury Povich at the beginning. That was, and then just even the message with Pasta News saying at the beginning, it's just like it resonates, and it's just, I mean, again, I was going like chronological order, so I felt like I kind of wanted to do Stakes is High, but I just did the next.
You're all good. These are your choices, and this is all up for interpretation, so that's why it makes a great conversation.
And that's why it's fun to talk about. I think anything with Dilla, it has to be the Thriller.
Yeah. Okay, the next one. What do we got? Wu-Tang?
Yeah.
Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers, I guess. Yep, that's off the wall right there. It's the breakthrough album. It's the introduction to like one of the greatest hip hop groups of all time.
It is the true supergroup. Outside NWA, it's the true supergroup.
Yeah. I mean, shit. Like you could arguably say that all 9 members are lyrical assassins. Some people might say, "Oh, Dirty wasn't a good lyricist or not," but I mean, I like U-God. I mean, I think U-God's like, I mean, he's Golden Arms, man. He's just, and that voice is just. I don't know. I always liked U-God and like it's Master Killa, the Jizza. Like I always like had those guys on I guess because I don't know. Like I just like the I didn't really. I mean, I like Method Man, Raekwon, Ghost, of course. Or those are like the best. But I kind of like the members that were like those. They weren't like always in the front like those guys were. But so I mean, shit. All RZA, Capadonna. I mean, I guess he's an official 10. But just this album, I just going back to it. I just think that it's the production, the samples, the sound, the grittiness, the way they could, their lead single could just be just the 8 guys without having a fucking chorus. So I just think that this was a sound that no one heard at that time, especially when you're in the early 90s and you kind of have that New Jack swing and that that early 90s, more of like the type of, now you're getting to this hardcore, rugged, pre-boom bap sound. And it's just like, fuck, this is freaking, what is this coming? Where's this coming from? And it's, that's how I feel about that album. It's just like raw, in your face. It's I can feel all these emotions. It's like, what? And you're kind of like trying to grasp it and trying to figure out, where's this gonna land, or where's it gonna go, or where's it heading? And then then you have all this, the Dirty's album, Meth's album, Raekwon's album, Ghost's album, Jizz's album, and then now the Thriller album would be, of course, Wu-Tang Forever. Again, when we talked about polished earlier, you could definitely hear the equipment that the RZA has access to now after 4 years later, from patchworking all this stuff together with his dusty MPs or SP12 or whatever he had, to like he probably has all these big old mixing boards, and his equipment's all top notch, and you could definitely hear the sound sonically is different on Wu-Tang Forever. Again, it's another double CD that came out. When you think that, oh man, another double CD, but this one was actually, where you could actually listen to the whole four records. But yeah, I mean, I just think that between the two albums, you could see like the difference and the maturity and the growth from 36 Chambers to Wu-Tang Forever, and again, even them lyrically too, from being hungry MCs that not even sure if what's gonna happen after they put out this record, to now when they're just touring with Rage Against the Machines, you know what I mean? So and I think that that album, Wu-Tang Forever, is the Thriller.
Yeah, Ant, I'll let you go first.
I definitely agree. I mean, it's those. To me, it's really those two albums. It's really those two albums that kind of like Dre. Like you have to put those two albums. I definitely agree. I mean, I like how each MC brought a different style and how they all represented a different borough, and so they all connected with somebody different. And so, I mean, it's a masterpiece.
Yeah, I would agree.
Both albums.
I could easily make the case in just playing devil's advocate that you could say 36 Chambers is
you could definitely switch it.
I'd say 36 Chambers is the off the wall, and 36 Chambers is also the Thriller. If we're gonna play that game, but no, I agree with you, and I think call it the money that had to come in to upgrade the equipment and give perspective. Like again, there's a gap between
no floods.
There's a gap between the two albums, and in between are all of the solo projects that we get, at least round one. So from we get Tikal, we get Only Built for Cuban Links, we get Iron Man, we get Liquid Swords. So the learnings that we got from at least those, and obviously we got Dirty's album, the learnings we got from those 5 albums before this got recorded, you can see the difference easily. And I think some people do make the argument, if this was only one CD, we may be talking about this as arguably the greatest hip-hop album in the golden era. Like, it could have been that. Some people just don't like, there's a couple songs that just don't hit like the rest of the album. Like, if you think of Triumph and MGM and some of the other classic songs that you have on that album, they kind of get lost because you have to go to another disc to find these albums. It's not, you don't get it in one shot if you're listening to on CD. The digital world probably helps this album more now because you listen to it in one shot. You can go and skip to that song, but people forget that
it already like recommends
listening to it digitally
which one's the better song. So people who don't, when someone who doesn't know the album, they're like, oh, we're gonna pick these ones.
That still the MCs are top bar, like uncomparable to today's artists.
And you can flat out see that they just got better.
And if you are up there, right.
Yep.
Okay.
I was gonna say if you are up there at the top of the MC chain, you're definitely influenced by the Wu.
There's no two ways about it.
And you'll hear it in there.
They've influenced everyone. That's just crazy. I mean, shoot, even what Aesop, Rocky, and Rihanna named their kid the RZA
Yeah.
or something.
So funny thing is,
To-
when I shared recently that I ran into Method Man in Toronto because he's filming a movie here, and as I was talking to,
I
yeah,
think I saw that
as
pic.
I was talking to him, I went back and like looked at something, and he says like, I know he had like 3 kids, and like 2 were twins, and then he has like an older daughter, and I didn't know that one of the twins' name is Raekwon. It
No.
is.
Wow.
It is. I think he loved the name so much he named one of his kids Raekwon, which I thought was so dope.
That's cool.
Yeah,
That's
because
cool.
and you see
Right.
now more often than I could ever imagine that kids get named Raekwon or just very unique hip hop names because of the influence of their what's happened to their parents from the 90s.
Right.
I mean, that logo alone.
I mean, that logo alone is like probably one
Most
of
recognizable logos there is.
the most known hip hop in hip hop.
That's probably the one up
That's
there.
probably the one up there that like you got some like kids like rocking a Wu-Tang shirt. I'm like, wow, you know that? Like, name me a member. So it's like some little kid.
It's my dad's shirt.
It's like, it's my dad's shirt.
100%.
And they're like,
That's
they're,
the store.
they're like, Redman's a member. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. They don't know.
That's what my fiance said. She was like, oh, I like Wu-Tang. I'm like, Redman's in it. I'm like,
Yeah.
nope,
He's an unofficial member.
nope.
Right.
Yeah. They're like brothers, but he's not an official Wu-Tang member. I think he even calls himself an unofficial Wu-Tang member. So
Yeah.
that's that. All right.
He could hang with
He could hang with
Yeah,
Shabazz
exactly.
Disciple.
Exactly. All right, so my turn. So I have three of the best. We have Outkast, we have Tribe Called Quest, and we have Nas. So we'll start with Outkast. I think obviously the groundbreaking sound that they created in '94 into '95, Southern playalistic Cadillac music has to be the one. This kind of is the one. I wouldn't say it opened the South. There were many other artists that just never got the play that they deserved in the South. This opened the door to many other artists when this album came out. This is the album that we talk about, that when they were the new artists of the year in 1995 and they stood on the stage and people were not receptive of them winning that award.
No,
and
I remember that.
One Andre 3000 had to say, the South has something to say. And that is forever in hip hop lore. This is in the almost the apex of the East Coast West Coast beef, and we have a team from the South taking away one of the most prestigious Source Awards because you can only really win it once. I think it was New Artist of the Year, and Outkast won it. And but I think what we saw with Outkast, I don't know if people thought that these two artists, Big Boy and Three Stacks, would create such a catalog, and arguably it's one of the best catalogs we have from any group, duo, however you want to classify them. But I think when we look at that, would be my Off the Wall album. But I think where people believe the Apex, it's not my favorite album. AT Aliens is my favorite album, but I can't say that is
Me too.
the thriller of this group. I think we have to go with Aquemini. Just the how this album fits. So, and I think what is unique when you start to listen to Outkast is conceptually, track order, the flow from one song to another. They may do it better than any other artist and how it all fits together. Now, I think Kendrick of the new era may be the best because it's either a poem or it's a movie or it's something that he's used as a concept to tell a story from beginning to end. And that's why even Damn in reverse is so interesting to listen it the other way around. So, but I think as a duo, Outkast does it better than any other artist. And I think if you look at, I just look at some of the artist storytelling part 1 and 2, or is a song that sticks out for me. Title song, Aquemini. Skew on the Barbie is my favorite Outkast song, period. Return of the G. Rosa Parks is a song that stands out for so many different people, and how they were just so creative and how they told the concept of creating a song about Rosa Parks. Chunky Fire is another amazing song. Liberation with CeeLo really talks about so many of the things that they're experiencing in the South, that this is a true masterpiece. And I love AT Aliens. AT Aliens is my favorite Outkast album, but I cannot say that it's the Thriller album of the entire, call it quintet of albums that they've created. But alternative, what do you guys think?
I definitely agree. I had the same AT Aliens, the Off the Wall, and the Aquemini, the Thriller. And that was just the beginning. And that was just the beginning, like of their career. Like that, their career took another
With
step.
Stankonia, yeah.
Yep.
No, you're right. I agree too.
No, you're right. I agree too. I mean,
Just with those two.
just with those two albums, what they started out with and how it was their jumping point and launched them into that mainstream. Because besides like Busta Rhymes, I mean, there's not that many other and Jay-Z and of course like Nas, but like some of these other guys from the 90s who were able to have a career and just and still like Roots too, you could say.
Yep.
Common is another guy, but like there's not that many that would consistently put out records that did well. I mean, there's other groups that still put records out, but no one knew like Grand Puba had it, or Brand Nubian had an album in 2005 or something, or they're like, oh, I didn't know that. But like, you know, like Outkast kept making records, and I think again this represents, you know, their beginnings to the album that just jumped, they're here, like, you know what I mean, they're in the mainstream and they're just selling the records, and you know.
Yep. And they're such an interesting group because both are still so talented. You know, geez, we're getting all of these instrumental albums now with Andre 3000.
Right.
He has no interest in rapping anymore. No, not rapping for an album. But some people have been able to twist an arm and get him to drop a 16. You know, think about, like, he literally had verse of the year 2 years ago on Michael. But on Killer Mike's album. So like you can find ways to, you know, get him to do a bar. Like, I think, hey, you know, the importance of thank you for your service. We got it from here. Tribe Called Quest album in 2016, and all of a sudden we hadn't heard from 3 Stacks in almost 10 years. And he shows up on that album along with Busta Rhymes, along with Consequence. So I think the important projects are really, he feels connected to what you're doing. He shows up. But them as a group trying to do another album, me personally, I still hold if we got a Black Star album, which I don't think we ever imagined that would happen again, I think there's hope that eventually we could get an Outkast album. But I think the problem with Outkast is because of their trajectory and how consistent they have made albums, anything less than that standard, they would scrap it. So I think that's part of the fear when they're that good. If no one wants to do the work, and it's not at the standard of AT Aliens or Stankonia or Southern Playalistic or Aquemini, as I just mentioned. If you can't, and forget about Speaker Box for a second, because it's a double album, it's different than the other 4. But it gets collected because that's the one that had the most commercial success. Like, thinking about songs like I Like the Way You Move and Hey Ya, like, those are the people that, like, it took them to a whole nother level, this double album. Like, they won so many Grammys because of it. So now you talk about a 5 album run. No one has done it better than they have. And this is why they belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So you now want to go make an album, and if it's not at that standard, they're not doing it. So I think there's pressure to make an album. They're far more removed from where they last left off. So this is why I just don't know if it will ever happen. Like, Dre has already said and I think also Outkast or Dre has said, and then obviously 3 Stacks is said that it's just not happening, and Big Boy would probably agree. Although he probably wants it more, no different than Quali wanted it more than most to make another album. I don't think there's any interest in going beyond what they've already created. So we just have to enjoy the 5 albums plus that movie soundtrack. What Ida World or whatever they called that one. Ida Wild, excuse me. That's the one that they did in 2006. I think that is like the last of the last that we're going to get from him. But hey, what a run. This is why they're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And as long as you feel that it took Tribe to get there, they've probably been waiting a little longer because they hadn't created anything since 2006. We're almost on 20 years, and they just got in this year. So, all right. So,
yeah, I agree. True rock stars. They went beyond. They went beyond. Like they expanded beyond hip hop music, and they wouldn't allow themselves to be put in a box, and they're still exploring their artistry now, and that's admirable.
Yep.
Like admirable.
Okay, let's move on to Tribe, as I've kind of segued them in there very carefully. We have a catalog, and again, this is a catalog that is literally as good as ever. When we talk about 5 albums, I'm looking down on my wall. They got 6 albums that I think are high quality. So there's a lot of different ways that you could go about looking at this. And as much as I love People's Instinctive Travels and Path to Rhythm, that can't be my off the wall album. It can be in some people's eyes, because I think some people would go, that album and then Low End Theory is their thriller. For me, that is my thriller, but not in this case. I think the way that I'm going to lay it out, Low End Theory, the sound that it created and how it sounds, with its influence of jazz and soul, and I think you really saw creatively how it sounded so different than the first album. And the first album's great. This is on the same trajectory or feel of 3 Feet High and Rising. This is why they're part of the same camp. You can see how one group rubbed off on another. But I think Low End Theory really felt like a Tribe album. It really felt like themselves. And this is no different than when I draw the comparison. This is now Michael Jackson not sounding like the Jackson 5. This is Michael Jackson doing his own thing. And this is why we get Off the Wall. That sounds different than everything else that's out there. And then we now proceed then, when we talk about a finished product, it's the right amount of songs. The songs all fit together. It's not my favorite. I will take Low End Theory as the Off the Wall album as my favorite album of this group's 6 album run. But Midnight Marauders is nothing short of spectacular. This is the thriller album of the Tribe Called Quest collection. You think of, oh my God, Electric Relaxation, which is arguably in many people's cases favorite song. You think of Award Tour. You think of just so many different songs. Oh my God. You think of Midnight. That the beat of that song is maybe the best beat on the entire album. And
Large Professor?
The chase, the album is absolutely spectacular. When I think of my top 5 albums, I think of Cuban Links. I think of, and I'm definitely East Coast biased. Cuban Links. Obviously, Illmatic is my grand master centerpiece. The Infamous, and then I have 2 Tribe albums. I have the ones that I just mentioned, Low End Theory and Midnight Marauders, round up my 5. I probably don't get into an album that, from the West Coast, probably is Death Certificate. That probably makes my top 10 overall. But that is my perspective on Tribe, and you can go on and on. I think one of the things that I took away from even watching the Tribe Called Quest documentary that I watched several years ago, and some people don't like how it went, including the artists, of how they got portrayed in certain ways. Yes,
Michael
that's the Michael
Rappaport's?
Rappaport piece. But I think what as much as I can't say I love Michael Rappaport, the story needed to be told. And you could debate what the story looked like and how it went. But I think the biggest scene that I took away is Q-Tip creating beats for Midnight Marauders and really understanding he's almost a madman behind the boards. He is an absolute
Oh yeah.
perfectionist. And to hear the story behind the album, this album almost didn't happen because Q-Tip was so obsessed with making this album perfect. He may have made it perfect, but in his mind, he could not let it go. He said, no, let's remaster. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. And the other members of the group were fed up with him. This is part of the internal conflict between him and Fife because he wouldn't let things go. He wouldn't move on to the next project. Let's do this. Let's do that. Q said, no, we got to do it this way. It's got to be like Q-Tip is the control freak, but when you see he has control and when he says it's done, it's magnificent. But this is why this album, it only solidifies more in my eyes that this is the Thriller of the group. But I'll turn it over to you guys.
Wasn't there a scene in
that doc that they had this like dope beat, and I think Busta Rhymes liked it too, and then Q-Tip's like, fuck it, he just erased it.
Yeah,
It was like crazy. There was like, what could have been? And it's like, sorry, I don't like it anymore. Erase. Dude, imagine if he didn't do that. That would have been a dope B-side or something on a 12-inch or something.
I mean, the way you just described Q-Tip is Michael Jackson, right there. Like perfectionist would not stop until it was what he envisioned from every step, cadence, beat, everything. He did not settle, and that was the coolest thing about exploring this topic.
I would agree.
And again, it shows.
And again, it shows these two albums.
When you strive for perfection,
I mean,
look at
the masterpieces he
and I think that the vision was similar for both. Like, these would be albums you play forever. Like, it doesn't matter how music can change. Yep. People are going to pick this album out and play it and saying, this is what my music sounded like. Like, people hold Midnight Marauders in such high regard. And yes, low in theory too. And that's my personal, I will continue to stand on business on that one. But people really talk about Midnight Marauders and the impact. And it was released November 9th, 1993, same day as Enter the Wu-Tang 36, arguably the greatest release date of hip-hop music because its two all-time classics came out on the same day. And I still remember standing, I'll tell the story until the day that I die. I stood in a record store in Windsor, Ontario, which is across the river from Detroit. And I held both albums in my hand. And I was a university student. I only had money for one. And I knew Tribe, and I kind of knew Wu-Tang. And I picked Tribe. I did the logical thing to do. And because there's no way I could not say that I bought the new Tribe Called Quest album. And I had the opportunity to. I literally went home 2 weeks later and my friend had dubbed it and gave it to me. So I ended up listening to Wu-Tang, but not paying for it other than the tape that I bought. But I know I made the right choice. And I was like, I honestly thought about how I felt when I listened to that album. I was utterly amazed on how it sounded. And what's the unique thing? We got 3 albums from Tribe Called Quest, and essentially when you go to Beats, Rhymes, and Life, it doesn't sound like that one. You go to The Love Movement, it doesn't sound like any of the previous 4. And then, Thank You for Your Service, we got it from here. So they created 6 albums with 6 totally different sounds. But this is the mastermind known as Q-Tip. So
it's like a reflection of the times.
It's like a reflection of the times. I mean, when these albums came out, this is like his ear interpreting what gonna fucking make what's gonna hit. You know, what this is the music that we're gonna put out and set a standard. And like what was it?
89 was the
89 the
first
first
album.
album.
Then 90, 91,
Then 90, 91, then 93, 96. Like even these like what the 98, even these couple years they were able to capture that sound, encapsulate it in these, and that's why each one sounds so different, because hip hop was super evolving. And it's crazy how it could just change from like 93 to 94 and then 94 to 95
Yeah.
and so on, and then you could hear these changes happening.
Definitely influenced where we're at today in the state of hip hop, and it has survived the test of time. The sound has survived the test of time, and it still sounds fresh today. If somebody listened to it as a new release,
you got it. You got it. All right, so this one is not going to go the way people think it's going to go. So we have Nas, arguably the greatest MC in many people's eyes, including mine. The Off the Wall album for me is not Illmatic. The Off the Wall album for me is It Was Written. The sound, how it sounds sonically, how he used... This could have been, in many people's eyes, this could have been a debut album for somebody, and how they would have broken in and ultimately tried to embrace where hip hop was today. And I think where his album was in '96, and It Was Written, you know, you had the single. Like, you think of how you had to create an album and have someone have the album to have staying power. You had to have a song like If I Ruled the World with Lauryn Hill. You had to have some street stuff. You had to have, now where we were in '96 when, you know, mafioso rap, you know, led by many people, including before we even got to Wu-Tang and what, you know, Ray and Ghost were doing, and before Jay-Z, you know, this was going on, you know, with Big Daddy Kane to a certain extent, but you definitely got it with G-Rap. So this style had already kind of manifested in terms of where it is, and call it, you know, both guys were from Queens, G-Rap and Nas, and you could definitely feel the influence from both of them. But I think when you think about that album and the sound and how it sounds sonically, like, this was like a breakthrough album in a whole different style. But I think when you think of the masterpiece and really what was Thriller, and how this album was handcrafted, how there were so many elite level hands, and if people forget, we had DJ Premier, we had Q-Tip, we had Large Professor, we had LES, and we had Pete Rock as the production team. There's no album that's ever been produced at that level with those many elite people. And I guess, like, again, for those that didn't know, Large Professor was like his big brother. Large Professor gave him the first chance to give him his first 16, live at the BBQ. And there were so many things that, you know, it's Large Professor's connections, because I think we have to take context. This is not a 21-year-old man. This is like a teenager that now meets the legends of hip hop at the time. You know, Pete Rock had just created Mecca and the Soul Brother. DJ Premier had made already multiple albums with Gangstar, and was starting to do albums with other people. We already knew what would happen with Main Source and Breaking Atoms, which was with their album. So there were all these artists, and then can't forget Q-Tip and what he already had created with Tribe Called Quest, and making 2 5-mic albums, and ultimately became 3 by the time the Source decided to review how their criteria of what they gave albums. It's the only group that has 3 5-mic albums. It's the first 3. So this is like the dream team of production people, and we have a kid from Queens that is spitting like no one has ever spit. Like, when we talk about how this changed what people thought hip hop was, because from purists like KRS-One, like Rakim, like Big Daddy Kane, like Cool G Rap, you can say that parts of him all influenced those guys. I think particularly what you thought in Big Daddy Kane, but I would say probably more Coogee Rap and Rakim. You could see the meshing of their styles together with something that we had never seen before. Words and how they were spoken and how they fit together, rhyme schemes that we had never seen, and then storytelling. Like, and I think this is really maybe the album for me. When you listen to certain songs, he painted a picture in your mind that I didn't know that music could really do. Like when I think of particularly New York State of Mind, I think of One Love. I think of songs like that where there were more of a concept to it than him just spitting incredible bars. I even think of The World Is Yours. The picture that is painted, and I think when you watch the movie Belly and you watch The World Is Yours, they took that song and made it a part of the movie. And it only resonates and reaffirms how great of a lyricist this teenager was. And I think that's what we have to qualify. This kid was 17 years old, writing arguably the greatest hip hop album that we've ever heard.
That's what's so cool about hip hop in general. Is these guys, super young. Like when you think about it, try to put it into perspective, wise beyond their years, and they're telling us the story of what we lived. You know, and if we didn't live that, they're telling it in a way that we could visualize it and feel it ourselves.
Yep. What are your thoughts?
I had Illmatic as my off the wall just because it was more raw and it was the first album, and Stillmatic
and I like
Thriller
that
because that's my favorite Nas album, and to me it was the polished album, and it elevated what he was already doing. It was a jab back at Jay. To where it was like, there's no way he's gonna recover from this, and then boom, here it comes. And then end of story, knockout punch.
Yeah, and he got at a lot of different people on that album. Rebuild and Destroy, like he got at all of QB. Anyone that was not siding with Nas, they got handled on that. From Prodigy to Cormega, you name it.
And to me, that's what hip hop is.
In no other genre is it done in that way.
I mean,
David, what's your perspective?
no, I agree too. No, I agree with you. I think that It Was Written was the off the wall, and then Illmatic, of course, one of my favorite albums of all time. And then just the impact after that album, that when it came out, even when Nas came out, who was in like 95, that maybe three guest appearances he was on. Was it Mobb Deep's album, Raekwon's album, and AZ's album? I mean, even like those verses, like I think it was AZ's More Money, More Murder, More Problems, or no, more money, more murder. But anyways, that song, that verse on that Nas's verse on that, yeah, the lyrics, it paints us like a picture, and then coarse verbal intercourse.
We still talk about that as one of the greatest guest appearances. Like we talk about even on Cuban Links, like that might be the best verse on the whole album, and the guy spit one verse.
Right, and that's crazy. Right. And that's crazy, you know. That was at that time where Wu-Tang, there's no guest features.
That was the RZA rules.
Those albums are straight Wu-Tang. Unless you're a Wu-Tang affiliate, you know. But then it's like, damn. But thinking of just the time from like 94 to 96. In between, he was still putting out like dope lyrics. And then just again, you had the Dream Team production. Wasn't it Search also who
Yep.
was behind
He was
some of
he was
the
in
executive
charge of like
producing
the
as well?
management / publishing, and he didn't.
Yep. Trying to get
Yeah,
things in line with.
trying to make sure that he got a proper deal.
Oh, I think I remember.
Yeah, that's right. And then
Yeah, that's right. And then I think I remember, wasn't it something about they were trying to get a sample clearance, but someone was being a pain, but they were able to get like the Michael Jackson sample. Like it was like easy to get that cleared, but then I forgot who it was trying to be a
I can't
pain on
remember
that.
that part, but I do
For that.
remember I remember I've seen a couple clips on it. He was able to use the Michael Jackson sample for It Ain't Hard to Tell, but the catch was that Michael Jackson refused to give him the sample if he was going to curse on the song. So if you notice, he like as the lyrical dexterity on that song, he doesn't cuss, and that was on purpose. That I learned many years later that
so he could
Nas
get
had to get that sample cleared. Michael said, "Yeah, you can use it, but you can't affiliate yourself and be cussing all over the place and saying all these different things. Like you're gonna have to spit your bars, but not swear." And I don't even know how do you approach Michael Jackson saying that? Yeah, there's this guy Nas. He's from Queens. He's 17 years old, and he's gonna use your music, but you have to let him use it because he may be the greatest MC we ever hear. Like I like just to be a fly on the wall to hear how they convinced Michael Jackson that we're going to use it, and beyond saying okay he can use it, except like how do you even get in the room with Michael Jackson? Like how do you work with Quincy Jones and say, okay, this Nas kid, this teenager is going to just spit over one of your all-time greatest records?
It's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
That's dope.
So, all right, gentlemen. So we have covered the ones that we were all we decided to sign up for. So there are some other ones that I think we definitely have to talk about. We got to talk about Jay. We got to talk about. I think we definitely got to talk about
Cube.
Jay. We have to talk about Cube, and we have to talk about Biggie. I think Biggie, obviously, a limited catalog. I think it'd be interesting to see where you align on Biggie. But I think Jay-Z and Cube are fascinating and where you think you line up. So, and Cube, West Coast guy, and I know you're both West Coast guys. This is like the West Coast edition of this podcast. My boy Isaac had to bow out, but we'll get him on the next one. Give us your perspective on Cube.
All right, so for Cube, my off the wall was Death Certificate. I know he just had the 35th anniversary for America's Most Wanted, but this one was more of like a West Coast sound. It was like the introduction for me to Cube's music as a solo artist. And then the more polished project, as I was a little bit older and I was a little bit able to understand the music a little bit more, was actually bootleg B-sides for me.
I like that.
That was the one that made me think of like Boys in the Hood movie, had that feeling. That's the one that I had on the Walkman, on the Sony Walkman, the yellow one that you were talking about, and that lived in my earphones. Those beats and the sampling of like the Zapp and Roger beats, and that kind of laid the groundwork for West Coast music. And so for me, that was the thriller in the Cube catalog.
That's interesting. I thought it was going to get something else, but
bootlegs and B-sides. It had those remixes.
And that is really good. Like, and I think, and maybe we're gonna have to come back and like really do like a full Cube deep dive, because when you start looking at just the first 5 albums that he did, America's Most Wanted, Death Certificate, Predator, Lethal Injection,
Predator.
and War and Peace Volume 1. Like, those are all amazing albums. Like, I would tell you, like, I cannot tell you how much I listened to Predator and Lethal Injection because I was in university. Like, those were the two albums that came out when I was at the University of Windsor. Like, Desert, like Lethal Injection, it's my least favorite of the first four. I probably played it the most though. And that was like kind of like really, it was a huge unlock for me for Q, because then I went back and like I listened to Death Certificate and Death Certificate, America's Most Wanted, and I felt like I listened to it like religiously for about 3 years. Like, it was like if I had 10 tapes, probably 2 of those tapes were those two. That's where I hold Cube in like high regard. And it's like, Lionel, like, you're an East Coast guy. Like, you sure it's not Busta? You sure it's not something else? Like when we talk about my 10 tapes that I had in a rotation in the mid 90s, 2 Cube tapes are not coming out. And those two, Death Certificate and America's Most Wanted, are locked in. Probably DOC would have been another one that would have been in there as well. I know it's not true West Coast. He's Texas, but it had the West Coast sound. And I honestly, if you want to consider that as a West Coast album, that's my favorite West Coast album of all time. I think it is absolutely incredible. Beginning to end. Again, another red Maxell tape that was on 90 minutes, and it's amazing. David, you got give us your opinion on Cube.
Just like Premier, he's from Houston.
Premier, he's from Houston.
Yep.
Like DJ Premier, just is one of the like
he's from Houston, and it's like, wait a minute, he's from Texas, but then he has the West Coast vibes right there. Lethal Injection is definitely the one that was like Pop Gun. It was you know how we do it. So,
yeah.
I mean, it was a pretty good album. I do agree that that's the off the wall. I think I would put Thriller as the Predator, just because of like It Was a Good Day, Check Yourself, Wicked. So, I mean, it had a lot of those classic songs from Cube. So that's the only difference. I mean, but the B-sides, the bootlegs, or the bootlegs and B-sides, that was I really liked that album because it had the remix on there, and it had tracks that you either had to have the record. And if you didn't have the record, it was on that album.
Yeah.
Right. To me, it was more like it put everything together for what was coming out, and then it was like redefining some of the tracks and that Check Yourself remix. To me, that's my all-time favorite Ice Cube song.
Yeah.
Super dope.
Yeah, it definitely and
DOS effects on it too. That was dope.
Yeah, it was dope. It was dope. And again, like, people
the
don't.
majority of my music is
Go ahead.
That was a delay. Sorry, man.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, you go.
Yeah, and I think I was just gonna share, like, I love how bootlegs and B-side is become. Yeah, I love how bootlegs and B-side is part of this conversation, because I think that's the most underrated project that he actually created. Like, I would have easily chosen America's Most Wanted as my my off the wall, and Death Certificate as my Thriller, but I love how you guys put both of you picked bootlegs and B-side, because I have such a love for that album as well. It is not what I expected when I bought it. It like far surpassed my expectations of how it was going to sound, and I hold that also in very high regard. So I love the choices that we made here on Cube. Let's move on to maybe the most challenging one of the bunch, Jay-Z. David, we'll let you go first with this one.
Who wants to go first on this one?
Go ahead.
All right. So my off the wall for me, Jay-Z was the Blueprint. That was more or less my introduction to Jay. I didn't start listening to his other albums till afterwards, but the Blueprint was definitely the off the wall for me. That was the game changer. Pushing the envelope, and him trying to take over the game. And then my Thriller, the polished album, where it had each track was one of the top producers in the game, was the Black Album. And just to see how he collaborated with each producer and each track and made it into like a super album. That was Thriller to me. That was the main event. But I'm definitely interested to see what your guys' takes are.
I love the take because, again, like, if you can believe, and I was mad at the Black Album because DJ Premier did not get a song on that album. Like, he just didn't make the cut. Like, what Jay had created or Jay had thought about based on listening to Premier beats, it hit the cutting room floor. So there is a incredible Jay-Z Primo song that did not make the Black Album. Because, again, we got to remember, this was supposed to be the retirement album. This was the album that was going to be the last of what we got from Jay-Z. But no, reality is we did get Kingdom Come and American Gangster and Blueprint 3 and then Watch the Throne and then Magna Carta and then 444. We got all of those albums. We got literally a whole nother career after he said he was going to retire. So these are how Jay-Z moves. You remember the whole Madison Square Garden one night only concert that he was going to retire and blah, blah, blah. But I like those. I like those choices. David, I'll let you go first.
I would say would be my Thriller. Because I think I like early Jay. I remember Jay when he was doing stuff with jazz,
right?
Big Jazz, or was it Jazzo? What was it again?
Jazzo.
So Reasonable Doubt is that he had a couple Premier beats on there. I loved situation where I really liked Jay because Biggie, he died, so that someone had to pick up, from where he left off, especially Brooklyn, and then The Evils, another track, the one with Biggie. What was that one again with Biggie?
Brooklyn's Finest.
But
Brooklyn's
I
Finest.
just think that would be my Thriller. Brooklyn's Finest, yes. Yeah, Brooklyn's Finest.
So who do you got as the Thriller?
No.
Those are my choices.
So I think if I were to pick, I would definitely agree that.
I had Reasonable Doubt is the Thriller.
Got it. Okay.
Blueprint was.
Got it. Okay. I definitely kind of I side with your choices there. I think Reasonable Doubt is kind of the breakthrough album. This is the one that, finally, in many controversial terms, Jay-Z finds his sound. He sounded like so many different rappers before. He sounded like Kane at one point. He sounded like Jazzo at another point. You listen to the song, I think it's on Lifestyles of the Poor and Dangerous on Big L's album. He's on a song called 8 is Enough. and he doesn't sound like the Jay-Z that we got on Reasonable Doubt. So there were definitely many, call it experimental pieces that we got with Jay. But Reasonable Doubt is the one that kind of landed where we needed to be as the off the wall. As much as I like the Black Album, I think it's the more polished. It's the one that resonates with me the best. I think the public would say that the Blueprint is the one that is the Thriller, but I ain't doing what the public says. The Black Album is Thriller. That is the one that is the best collection of all the different styles that Jay-Z has to offer. And I think you just let's think about this thing. Like Encore to Threats to December 4th, Moment of Clarity, Change Clothes, you get the commercial song, you get the club banger in Dirt Off Your Shoulder. You get 99 Problems that we still play to this day. You get Lucifer and Allure that sound totally different than everything else on the album. The one I don't like Justify My Thug. I think that one's one that could have hit the cutting room floor and we not got, but we did get it. And then what more can I say is I think it as a good round out to the entire album. It gives you so much all in one project without really overdoing it. It's only 14 songs and an interlude. People debate, obviously, to say that the Blueprint is the better album. This is the Kanye produced album. This is, Jay-Z at his most ferociousness. And I think because of he is trying to take the crown and take down Nas all in one go, easily could be your Thriller album, but I will take the Black Album over Blueprint any day. And that's my opinion, and this is my podcast. So, gentlemen, I know we've been at this for, it is an hour and a half. So I would definitely love to tap into
Justify My Thug.
Maybe one more artist and just see where we land specifically. Where did it go? And I think we've covered a lot of different artists and a lot of different perspective. I got to plug my, like David, I am an East Coast artist. Say that again.
What happened, Anthony?
I'm sorry. I think we're breaking up a little bit. But what I did appreciate about Justify My Thug, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, there's a little bit of breakup. Let's see if we can wrap this up.
Best producers was that
go ahead.
A West Coast legend. Best producers of legend.
Yeah. I agree with you. That was it definitely gave probably even the producers, if you think the producers were under pressure. DJ Premier said, yeah, of course I'm going to slide on Jay-Z's last project. Didn't happen. So it definitely put it raised the bar for what we ultimately got as a project. So I think there's one, and again, I'm an East Coast head to the day that I die, and we've talked about a lot of groups. One group that I would love to debate or put out there is Gangstar. So for the group, and this is not on the list, so this is kind of off the cuff. I didn't even really think this one through. Which would you say is Gangstar's off the wall, and which is Gangstar's Thriller?
Hard to Earn.
Is which one?
Hard to Earn would be the Off the Wall. Is just it's what I think Moment of Truth is going to be Off the Wall, even though I'm not going chronological order. The reason why I put this one off the wall is because it was becoming more mainstream. Like more people knew who Gangstar was.
Yeah.
My Thriller is Hard to Earn just because of the whole album in its entirety and the production. All my favorite Gangstar songs: Mass Appeal, Code of the Streets, Now You're Mine. The Planet. Basically all the songs from side A to B. I just think that that's their best album, and I put them. I could have put Daily Operation is off the wall, but I just chose I chose Moment of Truth is because again they were now they got like what Jodeci was one on their track.
Yep.
Respect the Deck on there, so they have they started doing more collaborations outside of the Gangstar Foundation.
Yep.
So I think that's
where you'd land. Okay. And what's your opinion?
I would have Step in the Arena as my off the wall. Just off of Just to Get a Rep was a game changing sound for me. Out here in the West Coast, it hit out here too. It wasn't just like East Coast, West Coast sound. So there was no like bias. It hit, and it kind of reminded me of like the Juice movie. And so that's where I would go. Step in the Arena. That was the introduction to me for Gangstar, and then the Thriller for me would be Moment of Truth. That was like the mega album for me, hit after hit, and that classic album for me, and that album put Gangstar as one of my favorite artists of all time.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I definitely would concur with you. No More Mr. Nice Guy wasn't the album. Like they sounded different. I think they were more on a jazzy tip at that point. That was their debut. I think Step Through the Arena where they really kind of established their sound. And so that for me definitely was the Off the Wall album. But I would then also take David's side, and Hard to Earn for me it just fits better than any other album from beginning to end. I think you can feel almost the story of them establishing themselves in hip hop, being accepted, and really being, I wouldn't say hip hop royalty, but I think when we talk about underground respect, this was truly earned, and I think the title just fits it, of where they were in their careers. Like this, to gain notoriety was definitely a challenge for this group. As much as I love the project, Daily Operations, it just didn't resonate with a lot of people. It's an underground classic. But I think Hard to Earn was the breakthrough album that this group came through. And it's funny that, the breakthrough album had a song called Mass Appeal. And I think you hear their thoughts about what you have to do to get Mass Appeal. And they call the song Mass Appeal. And that is one of their most revered songs that they have, that people know front to back. That what's the other song that I'm thinking of? Not Now You're Mine. Actually, before I say anything, and The Wick is probably the most known song that they have, the one that they do obviously with Nice and Smooth. But I think when you think about Gangstar, Code of the Streets is the song that sticks out for a lot of people. That and Mass Appeal. But when you also think about and the quick little story that I'll tell before we wrap up is the song Now You're Mine, which is a song, it's like almost like a basketball feel song, because he's essentially talking about dissing someone, but in a form of basketball. So
the commercial?
Yeah, so it's very creative that it's done this way. But if you hear the story about how this song came to be, Premier and Guru were not seeing eye to eye. They actually were having a fight, and Guru went down and wrote this song, and Premier put the beat on. And when they kind of finally got back in the studio, and they still weren't seeing eye to eye when the song was created, but when he laid the vocals down and then the dust kind of settled, he says, I actually wrote that about you. I was pissed off with you, and this is what I came up with. And he says, like, that is incredible.
And that's what
it's just funny how things work
basketball
sometimes.
is.
That in your worst state,
hand in hand with
you
basketball.
or you're literally butting heads with a fellow artist that you're working with, that is your partner, and this is the song you come up with, which is an amazing concept song all on its own. Yeah, and I think that's why the song resonates with so many people. It's because it's in basketball terms.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. So, well, a very elongated episode, but I think we covered so much content and had some great sharing of opinions. So, and David, thanks so much for your time. Thank you. If you've made it to this point, we're almost 100 minutes in. I really appreciate you all listening. This is another great hip hop debate. These are regular guests that we have on the podcast, and they've really helped make the last couple seasons really come to life. So both of you, thank you very much. Appreciate you being on, and we have a couple other ones that are in store in the near future. So we hope to have you guys back very soon. But thanks for listening again. Sneaks, Rhymes, and Life is available on Apple, Spotify, and obviously you'll be able to see this one on YouTube. But guys, thanks so much. Appreciate you being on, and for Sneaks, Rhymes, and Life and all the fans.
Gotta subscribe.
We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks very much. Bye for now.
Thank you, brother.
All right, thanks. Peace.
Have a good night.